Nobody saw this coming. Not like this. Not this messy, not this public, and definitely not this brutal. For months, people were calling Nova Sinclair and Adrian Cross the untouchable golden couple. The red carpets were flawless, the vacation photos looked surgically perfect, and every public appearance felt like a luxury brand campaign disguised as a love story. But behind those picture-perfect smiles, something was rotting, and according to whispers now exploding across the internet, Nova didn't just lose a relationship. She says she may have walked straight into a trap. And if the rumors are true, trusting Adrian Cross wasn't just a mistake. It was the mistake that changed everything. Because now fans are going back through every interview, every deleted post, every awkward body language clip, and every suspicious moment they ignored the first time around. People are asking one terrifying question. Was Nova ever really his girlfriend? Or was she just part of a bigger plan he never expected would blow up in his face? Sources close to the situation are claiming there were warning signs everywhere. A second phone. Strange late-night meetings. A private agreement nobody was supposed to find. And then there's the comment Nova allegedly made behind closed doors that has people absolutely spiraling. She didn't say he broke her heart. She said he studied her. And if that one sentence means what people think it means, then this story is darker, colder, and much more calculated than anybody imagined. Because tonight we're getting into the clues, the timeline, the alleged betrayal, and the moment Nova realized trusting Adrian Cross may have been the biggest mistake of her life. And trust me, by the end of this, that glamorous fairy tale is going to look a whole lot more like a performance. To understand why this story is detonating online the way it is, you have to understand who Nova Sinclair and Adrian Cross were before they ever stood next to each other. Nova Sinclair wasn't just famous. She was one of those women people either admired, envied, or obsessed over. She built an empire off beauty, fashion, and ruthless self-control. Her interviews were polished, her brand was expensive, and her image screamed one thing louder than anything else. No weakness allowed. Even when she smiled, it looked intentional. Even when she laughed, it felt curated. Nova was the kind of celebrity who made everything look effortless, and that's exactly why people were stunned whenever they saw her let her guard down. Then there was Adrian Cross. Adrian wasn't just the leading man. He was the leading man. Critically respected, commercially successful, media-trained, and almost suspiciously careful. He had the kind of reputation publicists dream about. Intense but charming. Mysterious but accessible. Private but somehow always visible at the exact right moment. Adrian knew how to say just enough to stay desirable and never enough to become vulnerable. To the public, he wasn't just attractive. He was disciplined. And when those two got together, the internet didn't know whether to celebrate or panic. First, it looked like a dream match. She was luxury, he was prestige. She was beauty and control, he was intensity and composure. Together, they looked like the kind of couple studios, brands, and gossip pages would invent if they had a machine that manufactured viral chemistry. But almost immediately, people started splitting into camps. One side said they were perfect. The other side said they were too perfect. And you already know what happens when a relationship starts looking too polished. People start looking for fingerprints. The first thing fans noticed was how sudden everything felt. Adrian had built his whole public image on keeping his romantic life locked down so tightly that even rumors barely made it through. Nova, on the other hand, had spent years under the microscope. Her love life was dissected like a sport. Every dinner, every unfollow, every vacation, every breakup turned into headlines. So when Adrian went from ultra-private to suddenly posting her, vacationing with her, smiling wider than usual, and stepping into public couple mode with almost cinematic precision, some people didn't see romance. They saw strategy. And the whispers started right there. Why now? Why Nova? Why this public? Why this polished? Why did every candid photo somehow look editorial? Why did every source close to them sound like they had media training? Why did every article read like a soft launch for a power partnership instead of a love story? Still, the relationship moved fast. People close to Nova allegedly said she was calmer around Adrian, softer, less guarded. Meanwhile, Adrian was being framed in interviews as a man who had finally found something real in a fake industry. Their dinners became news. Their vacations became evidence. Their silence became mystery. Their chemistry became a business asset. And maybe that's where the real problem started. Because while the public was falling for the fantasy, others claimed something about Adrian's behavior didn't add up. He was attentive, yes, but maybe too attentive. Romantic, yes, but in a way that felt studied. He remembered details, repeated her phrases back to her, mirrored her values in interviews, and somehow always seemed to know exactly what version of himself she needed in the moment. First, that sounds sweet. Until it doesn't. One makeup artist who was allegedly around them at a private event later described the energy in a way that has now gone viral. She said Nova looked happy, but Adrian looked focused. Not relaxed. Not infatuated. Focused. As if he wasn't just in the relationship. As if he was managing it. And once people started replaying old footage with that theory in mind, everything started to look different. The hand on her back that once looked protective suddenly looked controlling. The long eye contact that once seemed romantic suddenly felt rehearsed. Even the interviews took on a new tone. Adrian often answered questions about the relationship with just enough depth to sound sincere while still revealing nothing. It was a masterclass in image control, and fans only started recognizing it after the cracks showed. Not publicly at first. Quietly. Tiny things started surfacing. Nova posting more self-focused captions. Adrian skipping events people expected him at. Friends of friends allegedly hinting that the relationship wasn't as peaceful as it looked. And then there was the strange pattern of deleted comments from fan pages anytime someone brought up Adrian's past. That's when the rabbit hole got darker. According to online gossip circles, Adrian had a history of ending relationships the same way. Not with explosions but with erasure. No dramatic cheating scandals. No public fights. Just women who vanished from the narrative while he walked away cleaner than he entered. Nothing concrete. Nothing provable. Just a pattern people didn't take seriously because nothing was ever loud enough to stick. Until Nova. Because Nova wasn't just another beautiful woman in his orbit. Nova had her own power. Her own audience. Her own instincts. And if there's one thing this industry never forgives, it's when two image-conscious people try to control the same story at the same time. That's why people now believe this breakup wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about a collision, a war between two brands, a power struggle hidden inside a romance. And allegedly, the moment it all started unraveling wasn't on a red carpet, not in an interview and not even in public. It happened late at night, after a glamorous event, when Nova reportedly saw something on Adrian's phone that made her stomach drop. What she found, according to one insider, wasn't just suspicious. It was devastating. And once she connected that one discovery to everything else she'd been ignoring, the fairy tale started collapsing faster than anyone could stop it. But what exactly did she see? That's where this story takes its first ugly turn. The night everyone keeps talking about reportedly started like a victory lap. Nova and Adrian had attended an exclusive charity gala at the Halston Tower Hotel, the kind of event where every table is covered in crystal, every guest is either famous or pretending to be, and every smile hides something. They arrived late enough to make an entrance, dressed in matching black, and by all accounts they looked untouchable. Cameras flashed. Comment sections exploded. The photos were instant headline material. But insiders now claim that behind the scenes, the energy was off from the beginning. One source alleged Adrian was distracted all night. Not rude. Not cold. Just split. He kept stepping away. He checked his phone more than usual. He reportedly whispered to his assistant twice, disappeared once during dessert, and came back with that polished calm public men wear when they're trying too hard not to look guilty. Nova noticed. Of course she noticed. You don't build an empire by missing details. At first, witnesses say she stayed composed. She smiled through the event, laughed when spoken to, posed when needed, and played the role everyone expected. But according to one alleged attendee, there was a moment at the after-party when Nova's expression changed so suddenly that people nearby thought someone had told her devastating news. The claim is that Adrian left his phone face up for less than 10 seconds. 10 seconds. And that was enough. Nobody knows exactly what Nova saw, but multiple gossip accounts began pushing the same theory within hours. A preview message popped up from a contact saved under a single initial. The message allegedly read, "You promised you'd end it after the campaign. After the campaign." Let that sink in. that message was real, it changes everything. Because now this wasn't just a suspicious text. It suggested planning, timing, a relationship with an expiration date. Witnesses say Nova didn't scream. She didn't throw a drink. She didn't cause a scene. And somehow that made it worse. She went silent. People who know Nova say her silence is the dangerous part. Silence means processing. Silence means connecting dots. Silence means the emotional storm is no longer messy. It's becoming strategic. The next morning, things got even stranger. Nova allegedly canceled a private fitting she had been excited about for weeks. Adrian's team quietly reached out to a tabloid to plant a completely unrelated, "they're stronger than ever" story. And then before noon, Nova posted a photo with no caption, just black silk sheets and a single line in tiny white text. Confusion is a warning. That one post hit social media like a grenade. Fans immediately started tearing through old content, looking for clues. One viral account posted side-by-side screenshots of Adrian, using almost identical romantic phrases in past relationships. Another account claimed a former staff member had come forward, saying Adrian kept separate circles for personal life and public life, and that they were never supposed to overlap. But then came the leak that pushed the entire story into another dimension. A screenshot began circulating from what was allegedly a group chat between someone on Nova's styling team and an unnamed entertainment publicist. The message read, "She found the draft. This is not just about another woman. The draft." Now everyone wanted to know what draft. By that evening, rumors were spiraling out of control. Some said it was a breakup statement prepared in advance. Others said it was a timeline for a staged engagement rollout. A few even claimed it was worse, that Adrian had documentation outlining how their relationship would be presented to maximize attention around an upcoming project. And then, just when it seemed impossible for the story to get any uglier, another detail surfaced. An alleged hotel employee claimed Nova didn't leave the gala with Adrian. She left alone. Adrian stayed behind for 43 more minutes. 43 minutes no one could account for. That number became its own obsession. Fans counted it, tracked it, made timelines, compared stories, and started building theories around what could happen in 43 minutes. A private meeting? A confrontation? A handoff? A call? A goodbye? Then Adrian made his first mistake. Instead of staying quiet, he reportedly sent Nova a message that was later paraphrased by multiple gossip pages. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even a denial. It was, "You're making this bigger than it is." And that, according to people close to Nova, was the moment she snapped emotionally. Because if there's one sentence women never forget, it's the one that tries to make them doubt what they already know. By midnight, Nova had removed 3 recent photos with Adrian from her page. Not all of them. Just 3. And that selective deletion drove people insane. Why those 3? Why not everything? Why leave the rest up? Was she sending a message? Was she gathering proof? Was she waiting for him to lie first? Then the first twist landed. According to a so-called insider who claimed to have seen internal branding material, the relationship may have been tied to a larger image rehabilitation strategy Adrian's team had been quietly building for months. Not just romance. Repositioning. The source alleged Nova wasn't chosen by accident. She fit a specific public narrative Adrian needed. Elegant, powerful, desirable, culturally magnetic, and instantly headline-worthy. If true, that would mean the relationship wasn't simply falling apart. It may have been designed with an agenda from the beginning. And once that theory hit the internet, people stopped asking whether Adrian was unfaithful. They started asking whether the entire love story was manipulated from day one. But before anyone could catch their breath, a second leak dropped. And this one didn't target Adrian alone. It suggested Nova hadn't just discovered something. She had been warned. Just when public sympathy seemed to be shifting entirely toward Nova, a new thread appeared online that changed the tone overnight. The thread came from an anonymous account claiming to be connected to someone in Nova's extended circle. Normally, that kind of post would get ignored. But this one was different. It was detailed, specific, and written with the kind of confidence that makes people stop scrolling. According to the thread, Nova had been warned months earlier that Adrian was performing sincerity, and keeping part of his life carefully compartmentalized. The account claimed at least 2 people advised her to slow down, but she believed Adrian had changed. And that's where the story became even more painful. Because if that rumor is true, then Nova didn't just get blindsided. She overrode her own instincts. The thread alleged one of Nova's friends confronted her after noticing inconsistencies in Adrian's behavior. Last-minute schedule changes. Random emotional distance followed by intense affection. Strategic vulnerability. Public devotion appearing strongest whenever cameras were nearby. The friend reportedly told Nova, "He always shows up most when he feels you drifting." That line spread like wildfire. He always shows up most when he feels you drifting. Suddenly, people weren't just calling Adrian calculated. They were calling him emotionally tactical. Then came the second shocking reveal. A leaked audio transcript started circulating on fan pages late that night. Nobody could verify it, but that didn't stop it from exploding. In the alleged transcript, a male voice believed by online sleuths to be Adrian is heard saying, "She trusts patterns. If you become the pattern, you become the exception." The sentence was chilling, clinical, and vague enough to be argued over for hours. Supporters said it could be fake. Critics said it sounded exactly like the kind of thing a controlled man would say when he thinks nobody's listening. And while the internet was still fighting over the transcript, entertainment blogs piled on with exclusive updates that only made things murkier. One blog claimed Adrian's legal team had already reviewed potential exposure risks if private messages surfaced. Another claimed Nova was quietly meeting with brand partners to reassure them she would not be dragged into a prolonged public collapse. A third report insisted there were tensions between both camps over who would speak first, because whoever controlled the first narrative would control the emotional framing of the breakup. Then, as if the chaos wasn't already nuclear, a celebrity stylist posted a cryptic message that people instantly linked to Nova. "Some men don't date women, they audition them for a role." That post was deleted within 11 minutes. Too late. Screenshots had already spread everywhere. By the next morning, the story had mutated from breakup gossip into an all-out image war. Hashtags were trending. Fan edits were dissecting old interviews frame by frame. Reaction channels were posting hourly updates. TikTok creators were doing body language breakdowns. Pop culture podcasts were releasing emergency episodes with titles like Love Story or Reputation Strategy? And did he curate her before he loved her? Then came the backlash from inside the industry. A rising actress who had worked with Adrian posted a vague, but loaded message about charm used as camouflage. A male director known for defending private men in a public world pushed back and accused social media of turning ambiguity into guilt. That only made the internet more aggressive. Supporters of Nova said women are always expected to produce courtroom-level proof before being believed. Defenders of Adrian said a man should not be convicted by vibes, captions, and anonymous leaks. And that debate split the audience right down the middle. But the real pressure point came when Nova herself made a move nobody expected. She didn't post a rant. She didn't release a statement. She uploaded a 14-second video of herself closing a black leather notebook, looking into the camera and saying, "Some lessons cost more because they save more." That was it. No names, no context, no tears. But the way she said it sent chills through the internet. Because now people believe that notebook contained something. Notes? Dates? Messages? Receipts? A timeline? Nobody knew. But everyone wanted to know. Adrian's team finally responded hours later with a statement so polished it almost felt dangerous. It said he would not engage with speculative narratives, manipulated interpretations, or emotionally weaponized misinformation. Emotionally weaponized misinformation. That phrase poured gasoline on the fire. Critics immediately asked, why mention emotional weaponization unless emotions are exactly what he's afraid of? Why sound so legal? Why not simply deny the allegations? Why not say clearly that the relationship was real, respectful, and honest? He didn't. And because he didn't, the silence inside the statement became louder than the words themselves. Then came the cliffhanger nobody was ready for. A pop culture reporter claimed a source close to Nova said the issue was no longer just trust. It was documentation. Apparently, Nova wasn't deciding whether to tell her side. She was deciding how much of it to prove. And if that source was even half right, then the biggest reveal in this entire scandal might not be behind us. It might be sitting in that notebook, waiting. By this point, social media was no longer reacting to a breakup. It was feeding on it. Every platform became a battlefield. On one side were the people who believed Nova had finally exposed the kind of polished emotional manipulation women in Hollywood are constantly warned about but rarely prove. On the other side were Adrian defenders insisting the internet had turned a private breakup into a fantasy crime scene built from cryptic captions and audience projection. And honestly, the division only made the story bigger. One viral post read, "Nova isn't heartbroken. She's humiliated because she ignored the signs." Another clapped back with, "No, she's furious because she trusted someone who studied how to be trusted." That second line exploded across fan pages, reaction videos, and live streams. Suddenly the conversation wasn't about whether Adrian cheated. It was about whether he engineered intimacy. That distinction mattered. Because if he lied, people could file that under ordinary celebrity mess. But if he performed emotional safety as a method, that felt darker, colder, more invasive. Then mainstream gossip shows started entering the arena. One host said the relationship looked like a luxury campaign with chemistry. Another called Nova's cryptic posts the soft launch of a hard truth. A veteran entertainment columnist warned that if the documentation rumors were real, this could become one of the most reputation-damaging celebrity breakups in recent years, not because of scandal alone, but because of what it would reveal about how image, romance, and power intersect behind closed doors. Meanwhile, brands were watching. Nova had partnerships. Adrian had studio relationships. Nobody wanted to be attached to a narrative spinning this fast. One anonymous marketing executive was quoted on a podcast saying, "In this business, heartbreak is survivable. Perceived manipulation is not." That one sentence sent the industry into panic mode. Suddenly publicists, agents, managers, and legal teams weren't just monitoring gossip. They were calculating fallout. Then the fake insider ecosystem kicked into overdrive. One page claimed Adrian was in full damage control and trying to determine who leaked the internal documents. Another said Nova had already been advised to stay silent because the more she says, the more he can challenge. A third claimed there was a hidden fracture inside Adrian's own team, with one former strategist allegedly furious that personal decisions had now become a professional wildfire. Of course, none of that was confirmed, but by then confirmation barely mattered. The story was bigger than facts. It had become a public referendum on trust, power, image, and gender. Fans began breaking into tribes. Team Nova saw a woman reclaiming her narrative after nearly being reduced to a role in someone else's rebrand. Team Adrian saw a man being devoured by innuendo because people love destroying men once they stop performing romance correctly. Then there was a third group, maybe the loudest of all, who believed both sides were playing chess and the public was simply being emotionally farmed for engagement. And to be honest, that theory kept gaining traction. Because then old clips resurfaced that made the whole relationship look almost eerie in retrospect. In one interview, Adrian had said, "I'm intentional about what I bring into public view." At the time it sounded mature. Now people were replaying it like a confession. In another old panel, Nova said, "Peace is expensive when people keep trying to buy access to you." That quote returned with a vengeance, with fans insisting she had been trying to tell us who she was long before this implosion. Then came the celebrity reactions. A singer known for surviving a highly public breakup posted, "When the story is too clean, check who's holding the editing rights." Fans assumed it was about Nova instantly. An actor who'd worked with Adrian wrote, "This is why no one should comment on private relationships from the outside." That triggered another pile-on, with people accusing him of protecting industry men because he recognized the pattern. Even daytime talk shows were taking sides. One panel framed Nova as a modern woman refusing to settle for image-managed affection. Another panel suggested cryptic posting was fueling unnecessary chaos. But the most viral comment came from a guest commentator who said, "Women don't usually call trust their biggest mistake unless trust was used against them." That line detonated. Clips of it went everywhere. Then a digital tabloid published what it called a reconstructed timeline of the final 6 weeks of the relationship. According to that report, there were at least 4 unexplained schedule changes, 2 canceled private trips, and one alleged argument over boundaries that existed for the public but not in private. Again, impossible to verify, but irresistible to discuss. And just when you thought the frenzy had peaked, a new statement from someone described only as a longtime friend of Nova landed online. She isn't trying to ruin him. She's trying to understand how she got this wrong. That made everything sadder, more human, more dangerous. Because revenge is easy for the internet to dismiss. But confusion? Betrayal? The shock of realizing the person who felt safest may have been the person managing the illusion? That's the kind of emotional storyline audiences can't stop projecting onto. And then, right at the moment the noise became unbearable, one entertainment journalist dropped a sentence that reopened every wound. "We may be focusing on the wrong betrayal." That was all the journalist said. No explanation. No follow-up. No context. Just that. So now the internet is asking the question nobody asked at the beginning. What if the biggest lie in this story wasn't about another woman, another message, or another secret meeting? What if it was about why the relationship started in the first place? Just when people thought the scandal had finally revealed its shape, the final twist hit, and suddenly the entire narrative tilted. A late-night report from a notoriously plugged-in entertainment newsletter claimed that Nova's inner circle was no longer focused on proving Adrian was disloyal. They were focused on proving he was strategic before he was sincere. That distinction changed everything. According to the report, the most sensitive issue wasn't a text, a second phone, or even a hidden meeting. It was an alleged presentation deck circulated months before the relationship became public. The deck supposedly outlined a reputation enhancement strategy for Adrian's next career era, including language about expanding emotional accessibility, broadening aspirational appeal, and aligning with a partner whose presence amplifies cultural magnetism. Partner. Not a girlfriend. Not a woman he loved. A partner asset. If that alleged deck exists, then this story goes from painful to chilling. Because now the internet isn't asking whether Adrian fell in love and messed it up. They're asking whether he entered love the way executives enter negotiations, with objectives. And then came the detail that turned the entire scandal into obsession. The report claimed Nova may have seen her own public image descriptors inside that presentation. Elegant, untouchable, desired, global. Imagine finding out the things someone praised you for in private may have been the same things someone measured you for in strategy. That's not heartbreak. That's emotional vertigo. Fans immediately connected this alleged deck to everything else. The sudden publicity, the curated vacations, the coordinated aesthetics, the glowing relationship features, the controlled language, the impossibly neat rollout. What once looked romantic now looked orchestrated. The chemistry wasn't less real, people argued. It was more frightening if it was real, because it meant performance and feeling may have been running side by side the whole time. Then the biggest bomb of all dropped. An anonymous source claimed Nova's black leather notebook contained dates, conversations, media timing patterns, and one handwritten sentence underlined 3 times. "Every time I needed clarity, he gave me atmosphere." That line spread faster than anything before it, because people knew exactly what it meant. Not lies obvious enough to leave. Not love steady enough to trust. Just enough warmth to stay confused. And if that's what Nova endured, then no wonder she now views trust as the most expensive mistake she ever made. But before the internet could fully digest that, Adrian reportedly made one final move. He didn't go live. He didn't do an interview. He didn't post a defense. He allegedly reached out privately through a mutual contact with a message that, according to one gossip account, said, "This is becoming something neither of us can control. Neither of us." That wording set off alarms immediately, because critics argued that men only say "we both" when they feel responsibility tilting toward them. Why say neither of us if one person is supposedly spreading fiction? Why not say this lie or this misunderstanding? Why frame it as shared chaos unless the chaos has roots? Meanwhile, Nova vanished. No posts. No appearances. No paparazzi sightings. Nothing. And in celebrity culture, disappearance is never just disappearance. It's preparation, strategy, recovery, Or all three? Then, 48 hours later, her beauty brand account posted an image of a closed curtain with one sentence. Some endings are edits, others are evidence. That was enough to send the internet into total collapse. Evidence. There was that word again. By sunrise, people were convinced something bigger was coming. A statement, a sit-down interview, a legal filing, a documentary, a leaked voice note, a diary excerpt, something, anything. The anticipation became its own event. Reaction creators camped online. Fan pages refreshed constantly. Gossip blogs started scheduling possible reveal coverage as if an explosion were already on the calendar. And the wildest part? Nobody knows if Nova actually plans to expose anything at all. Maybe the notebook stays closed. Maybe the deck never surfaces. Maybe the truth remains suspended in that terrible space between suspicion and proof. Or maybe this is just the first wave. Because one final rumor now refuses to die. A former consultant allegedly connected to Adrian's image team is said to be considering speaking out, not about the breakup itself, but about how celebrity relationships are sometimes shaped, timed, and publicly translated long before fans ever see the first photo. If that happens, this story won't just be about Nova and Adrian anymore. It'll become a blueprint. And that is exactly why this drama feels far from over. So was trusting Adrian Cross really Nova Sinclair's biggest mistake? Or was the biggest mistake believing that what looks intimate in public must be honest in private? Either way, one thing is clear. The fairy tale is dead. The questions are multiplying. And whatever comes next could be even more explosive than everything we've already seen. Because if Nova decides to open that notebook, the story everyone thought they understood may turn out to be the cleanest version of the truth. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Nova was genuinely blindsided? Or do you think the warning signs were there the entire time, and she just hoped love would rewrite the pattern? Do you believe Adrian was misunderstood and torn apart by internet theories? Or do you think this whole situation has all the signs of a calculated image-driven relationship that spiraled out of control? And here's the bigger question that has everybody arguing right now. If someone gives you affection, attention, reassurance, and all the right words, but every moment feels slightly too polished, is that romance, or is that performance? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this story is dividing everyone. I want to know whose side you're on, what clues stood out to you the most, and whether you think that black notebook really contains the receipts people are waiting for. If you made it this far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications because if another leak drops, if that alleged deck surfaces, or if Nova finally decides to tell the full story, you already know we're going to break down every second of it. And trust me, if the next update is even half as explosive as the rumors suggest, this drama is nowhere near finished. Because sometimes the breakup is just the headline. The real story starts after the silence.